We gave this country our whole lives, and now they want to throw us out of our own home.
Bang, bang, bang. Eleanor Johnson froze. 72 years old. A widow who had lived in the same small brick house on a quiet street in Georgia for over 40 years. Her husband, Samuel, shuffled slowly toward the door with his cane. His hands trembled. "Who's knocking like that at this hour?" Eleanor whispered. Samuel opened it. Two men in pressed suits stood outside, papers in their hands. Their eyes cold, their voices sharp. "Mr. Johnson," one said, "this property is no longer yours. You have 30 days to vacate." The words dropped like stones. Samuel's grip on the cane tightened. Eleanor's knees weakened. "This is our home," Eleanor cried. "We paid for it. We raised our children here. You can't just take it." The man smirked. "Ma'am, the new zoning laws are clear. You people should have read the fine print. You people." The words stung deeper than the notice itself. Samuel's voice broke. "This is discrimination. I know what this is." But the men didn't flinch. They shoved the papers into his hands, turned, and walked down the porch steps as if they'd just crushed an ant beneath their shoes. Eleanor clutched Samuel's arm. Tears filled her eyes. "After all these years, they want to throw us out like trash," Samuel whispered, his voice heavy. "They think we don't have anyone to fight for us." Pause. "Let me ask you something. If you're watching this, tell me where you're from in the comments, hit like and subscribe, because what happens next will leave you stunned. But before we get to that moment, let's rewind. Let me take you back to where it all began." Eleanor sat in the living room, her eyes fixed on the eviction notice. Her hands shook as she held it, not from weakness, but from anger. Samuel leaned back in his chair, staring at the faded photographs on the wall. Black and white portraits of their parents, family reunions, church gatherings. Every frame told a story of survival. "This house," Samuel said softly, "we built it with our own hands, laid every brick, scraped every dollar," Eleanor nodded, "and we fought harder than most, just to live in this neighborhood." She remembered the day they bought the home. It was 1979. The realtor's smile was fake, his words colder than ice. "Are you sure this is the right area for you folks?" Back then, you folks carried the same sting it did today. Neighbors stared. Some even whispered. Their mailbox was smashed twice that first year. A rock through the window once. The police called it kids playing pranks. Eleanor knew better, but they stayed, because walking away meant letting hatred win. And now, decades later, the fight had returned. Only this time it wore suits and ties. Only this time it was dressed up as law. Samuel rubbed his forehead. "They think we're too old to push back. Too tired. Too alone." Eleanor clenched her fist. "We are not alone." Her voice shook. She wasn't just talking about faith or friends. She was thinking about the ones who called her Mama and called Samuel Dad. Children they had taken in. Children no one expected them to raise. Kids who knew the sting of racism themselves. Kids who carried fire in their veins. But would they come back? Would they stand up now, when everything was at stake? Eleanor whispered. If they knew what was happening, they wouldn't let this stand. Samuel closed his eyes. "Then it's time we tell them." What Eleanor didn't realize was that the moment those phone calls were made, an unstoppable chain of events would begin, one that would shake the entire neighborhood and expose a truth the city tried to bury. The phone rang 3 times before someone picked up. "Hello?" A deep voice answered. "Edie, it's Mama." Eleanor's voice cracked as she spoke, silence on the other end. Then a sharp intake of breath. "Mama, what's wrong? Are you okay?" Eleanor hesitated, trying to steady her voice. "They're trying to take the house, baby. They came today, said we have to leave." For a moment, all Eleanor heard was David's breathing. Then a low growl. "They what?" David Johnson, 38 years old, black, their first adopted son. Once a shy teenager with no place to go, now a successful defense attorney in Atlanta. A man who had faced racism in every courtroom, from the looks of juries to the dismissive tones of judges. But he fought. And he won. Eleanor closed her eyes, listening as his anger spilled through the line. They can't do this to you. They think because you're old, you won't fight back. They don't know who your son is. Samuel's weak voice joined in from the background. Son, it's bad. They've got papers, lawyers. We don't stand a chance. But David cut him off. You stood by me when no one else did. You gave me a home when the system wanted to throw me away. Do you think I'm about to let someone put you on the street? Eleanor bit her lip, tears sliding down her cheeks. Mama, David said firmly, pack nothing, sign nothing. I'm coming, her voice trembled. Are you sure, baby? You've got your own battles. David's voice sharpened. This is my battle now. The line went dead. Eleanor lowered the phone, her chest heaving. Samuel looked at her. What did he say? She whispered, almost afraid to believe it. He's coming home. What they didn't know was that David wouldn't be coming alone. He was about to bring someone into this fight who would uncover secrets far darker than a simple eviction notice. 2 days later, Eleanor heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. She pushed back the curtain. A sleek black car pulled into the driveway. The door opened and David stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, suit still pressed from court. His jaw clenched, his eyes burning. Mama, he said, rushing up the steps. Eleanor fell into his arms. For a moment, she was no longer 72. She was just a mother, holding her son. Samuel limped forward, his cane tapping against the wooden floor. Son, he whispered, voice breaking. David hugged him tight. I told you, Dad. Nobody's taking this house. But before Eleanor could answer, another car pulled in behind David's. A rusted pickup this time. Out stepped a woman, strong, with braided hair pulled tight and determination written across her face. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Rosa Johnson, 34, their second adopted child. She had grown up under Eleanor's care after being abandoned at a bus station as a little girl. Now, Rosa was a community organizer, fighting housing discrimination in low-income black neighborhoods. She dropped her bag on the porch, stormed inside, and threw the eviction notice on the table. I've seen these before, she spat. This isn't just about zoning laws. This is a land grab. They're targeting black homeowners. I've got files, proof, names. David turned to her, shocked. You knew about this? I didn't know it had reached Mom and Daddy, Rosa snapped. But I've been tracking these developers. They want to push black families out and sell the land to rich buyers. It's systematic, and it's ugly. Eleanor felt her knees weaken. Lord have mercy. Samuel sank into his chair. So they've been planning this all along. David slammed his fist on the table. Then we fight. In court, in the press. Wherever we have to. Rosa's eyes locked with his. You handle the law. I'll handle the streets. Together, we bring this into the light. The air in the room shifted. For the first time in days, Eleanor felt a spark of hope. But Rosa's expression darkened. There's one more thing you need to know, she said. The man behind all this isn't just a developer. He's someone from our past. David froze. Eleanor's heart dropped, because the name Rosa was about to say would open an old wound, one the Johnson family thought had healed decades ago. Rosa's eyes hardened as she dropped a thick folder onto the table. Look inside, she said. David opened it. Page after page of documents, maps, contracts, property transfers. And at the center of it all, stamped in bold letters, was a single name. Eleanor's hand trembled as she read it aloud. Richard Hale. Silence fell. Samuel's cane clattered against the floor as he leaned forward, rage rising in his voice. Hale, I should have known, David frowned. Who is he? Eleanor swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. You were too young to remember. Richard Hale was the realtor who sold us this house. He was the one who told us we didn't belong here. The one who tried to scare us out when the neighbors complained. Samuel's voice cracked, fury mixing with pain. He led the harassment back then. The rocks, the broken windows, the threats, all of it. He was the face smiling when others spit at us. David's jaw tightened. And now he's back. With power. With money. Rosa slammed the folder shut. He never stopped, David. He just got smarter. He built a company. Now he's using laws, loopholes, and politics to do what he couldn't do with hate alone. Eleanor sank into her chair, clutching her chest. All these years, and he still wants us gone. David's hands curled into fists. No, he wants more than that. He wants every black family off this land. He wants to erase us. Rosa looked at them both. Then we need to be ready, because he's not coming with just papers. He's coming with the full weight of the system behind him. The room went cold. Eleanor could feel the walls of her beloved home closing in. David whispered, "If he thinks we're the same scared family he tried to bully 40 years ago, he's in for a shock." But outside, headlights flashed across the window. A car slowed in front of the house. It idled there, watching, waiting. Eleanor's stomach dropped. "They're already here," she whispered. Because when the Johnsons peeked through the blinds, they realized Richard Hale wasn't just sending lawyers anymore. He was sending a warning. And what happened that night would change everything. The hum of the engine outside cut through the silence. Eleanor's chest tightened. She gripped Samuel's hand. David moved toward the window, careful to stay in the shadows. Rosa followed, pulling the curtain just enough to see. A black SUV sat in the street. Its headlights burned into the house like searchlights. Inside, 2 men stared back motionless. "Who are they?" Eleanor whispered. Rosa's voice was low but steady. "Developers don't roll up in cars like that. Those are hired men. Hale's sending a message." David clenched his jaw. "Then let's send one back." He reached for the front door, but Rosa grabbed his arm. "No, that's exactly what they want. They want you angry, reckless. Step outside, and it's your word against theirs." The SUV door cracked open. A man stepped out. Broad shoulders, black leather jacket. He didn't say a word, just walked up the driveway, slow and deliberate. Samuel forced himself upright with his cane. "Don't you open that door," he warned. His voice shook, but his eyes held fire. "That's not a visitor. That's a vulture." The man reached the porch. He bent down, placed something on the steps, and turned back without knocking. Moments later, the SUV's engine roared, and the car rolled slowly down the street. Eleanor's breath came fast and shallow. What did he leave? David opened the door carefully. On the porch sat a single envelope. Inside was a photograph. It was their house, taken from across the street, and scrawled in red marker across the picture were 3 words. "Time is up." Eleanor gasped. Samuel's face hardened. David crushed the photo in his hand. He thinks he can scare us out. He doesn't know who he's dealing with. But Rosa's eyes narrowed. This isn't just about scaring you. It's about control. If he's willing to go this far, then he's already planned the next move, Eleanor whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Lord, protect us." Because the next morning, when Eleanor stepped outside, she realized Richard Hale's plan wasn't just intimidation anymore. It had already begun to strip their lives apart. Morning sunlight spilled across the Johnsons' porch. Eleanor opened the door cautiously, clutching her robe tighter around her frail frame. And there it was, a bright orange notice stapled to the wooden post. "Final warning, vacate immediately or face forced removal." Her knees buckled. She grabbed the rail to keep from collapsing. "Samuel!" she cried. David rushed out behind her, tore the notice down, and crumpled it in his hand. His face was red with fury. They're fast-tracking this. No due process, no hearing. They're skipping steps. Rosa stormed outside, reading over his shoulder. That's how Hale operates. He's got friends on the city council, judges in his pocket. This isn't about laws, it's about power. Samuel came to the doorway, his cane tapping against the wood. His voice was low but sharp. "He wants us humiliated, dragged out like criminals from the home we built." David paced the porch. "Not if I can help it. I'll file an injunction. I'll take this to federal court if I have to. They don't get to break the law just because they own it." Rosa shot him a look. "And while you fight on paper, Hale will use the media. He'll spin it. He'll paint Mama and Daddy as squatters, as freeloaders. That's how this works. They smear your name until nobody cares what happens to you." Eleanor's hands trembled. "They'll believe him, won't they?" "They always believe them." David stopped pacing. His voice softened. "Not this time, Mama. Not if we make them see the truth." Rosa leaned forward. "Then we hit back harder. Rallies, neighbors, press. If Hale wants a fight, we bring it to his doorstep." Samuel's tired eyes sparked with fire. "Do it. Show them we're still here. Show them we won't bow." But before David could respond, a loud thud hit the side of the house. Everyone froze, another thud. Then glass shattered. Rosa ran to the living room. A brick lay on the floor, surrounded by shards of broken window. Attached to it was another note. She unfolded it with shaking hands. Her voice cracked as she read, "This is your last chance." David looked at the broken glass, then at his parents. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with rage. They just declared war. By evening, Rosa had her phone out, her fingers flying across the screen. Posts, emails, calls. She wasn't just reaching friends. She was mobilizing networks, activists, reporters. "This doesn't stay in the dark," she muttered. "If Hale wants a war, we'll shine a spotlight on him." David was already in the dining room, spreading out legal documents. "I'll file the emergency injunction tonight. But it's not enough. We need pressure, public pressure. If they see an old black couple being evicted by a greedy developer, maybe the city won't play along so easily." Eleanor sat at the head of the table, her voice shaky. "Baby, I don't want the whole world watching me break." "I'm tired." Rosa stopped typing, her tone gentle. "Mama, this isn't just about you. It's about every family like ours. If they can take this house, they can take anyone's." Samuel's weathered hand reached across the table to hold Eleanor's. "She's right. We've been fighting all our lives. Maybe this time we fight for more than just us." The next morning, the quiet street outside their home looked different. Neighbors gathered on lawns. Hand-painted signs rose into the air. "Hands off our homes." "Stop Hale." "Justice for the Johnsons." News vans parked at the curb. Cameras flashed. Reporters shoved microphones forward. David stood on the porch in his suit, his voice booming. "This is not just a house. This is 40 years of blood, sweat, and dignity. And no corrupt developer has the right to erase that." Cheers erupted. Rosa lifted a megaphone. Her words cut like fire. "They want to silence us. But we are louder. They want us invisible. But we are here. They want us gone. But we are home." Eleanor and Samuel stood behind them, fragile but unbroken. The crowd roared their names. Inside his office downtown, Richard Hale watched it all unfold on live television. His jaw tightened. His smirk faded. He picked up the phone. "Send the papers," he hissed. "If they want to fight, I'll bury them in court." Because what the Johnsons didn't know was that Hale's next move wouldn't just attack their home, it would dig into their past. And his weapon this time was a secret about their family no one was prepared to face. The next morning, the Johnsons' lawyer fax machine buzzed non-stop. David pulled the sheets as they slid out, his eyes narrowing with every page. "They're not just filing eviction orders," he muttered. "They're digging into adoption records." Eleanor stiffened. "What do you mean?" David spread the papers across the table. "Hale's lawyers are claiming that since you adopted us, your children, you don't have legal heirs. They're arguing this house doesn't belong in the Johnson family at all." Eleanor's chest tightened. "He's using our family against us?" Rosa's voice rose with fury. "That man has no shame. We were abandoned, and Mama and Daddy gave us love, gave us a home. And now he's saying we don't count, that we're not real family." David slammed his hand down. "He's painting us as outsiders, saying this house is just property, not legacy. He's trying to erase what makes us a family." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. "When we took you in, we didn't see bloodlines. We saw children who needed love. You are our children. No lawyer can change that." But Rosa knew the damage Hale was aiming for. He's not just fighting in court. He wants to plant doubt in the media, in the community. He wants people whispering, "Are they even really a family?" That's how racism works. It chips at your dignity until you start doubting yourself. David took a deep breath, steadying himself. Then we turn it back on him. If he wants to challenge our family, we make the world see who we are, not just with words, with history, with truth. Eleanor's trembling hand reached for the Bible on the table. Between its pages were photographs, adoption papers, birthdays, graduations, proof of decades of love. "Show them this," she whispered. "Show them what family looks like." Outside, the crowd of supporters was still growing. But across the street, Hale's men stood too, watching, recording, waiting. Samuel looked out the window, his voice low but sharp. He's not done. He'll come harder now, and he was right. Because later that night, as the Johnsons prepared for another day of battle, a new document arrived, this one darker than anything before. Inside that envelope was a threat so personal, so cruel, that for the first time, Eleanor wondered if fighting back would cost them more than just their house. The envelope was heavier than the last. David opened it carefully, his gut already tight. Rosa leaned over his shoulder. Eleanor and Samuel waited, their hearts pounding. Inside was a single photograph. Not of the house. Not of them. It was a picture of Rosa's daughter, 7 years old, walking home from school. Eleanor gasped and covered her mouth. Samuel's cane rattled against the floor. Rosa's entire body went rigid. Where did he get this? She hissed. David unfolded the letter attached. His voice trembled with fury as he read aloud, "Families built on lies can be broken. Walk away quietly, and no one gets hurt." The room froze. Eleanor's tears spilled freely. "He's going after the children now?" Rosa's hands shook with rage. "My baby is innocent. She doesn't even know this fight exists. And he's threatening her life?" David crushed the paper in his fist, his voice like thunder. "This isn't just about property anymore. This is terrorism." Samuel's voice cut through, low and steady. "This is what hate does. It doesn't stop at your door. It wants to infect everything you love." For the first time, Eleanor's strength cracked. She looked at her children with hollow eyes. "Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe we should leave. I can't risk losing any of you." Rosa dropped to her knees in front of her mother, gripping her hands tight. "Mama, listen to me. If we walk away, he wins. Not just against us, but against every black family he's targeting. We cannot hand him this victory." David nodded, his jaw like stone. "He thinks threats will break us. He doesn't realize threats only light a fire." Eleanor shook her head, torn between fear and faith. But what if he really? A knock thundered at the door. Everyone froze. The knock came again, harder this time. Rosa grabbed a baseball bat from behind the couch. David squared his shoulders, ready. Eleanor's voice trembled. "Dear God, protect us." Because when the door opened, it wasn't Hale or his men. It was someone else entirely. Someone whose arrival would change the course of the fight forever. The door creaked open, every breath in the house held tight. And then a familiar voice. "Mama? Daddy?" Eleanor's hands flew to her chest. Oh my Lord, it was Michael, their youngest adopted son, 30 years old now. Once a quiet foster kid who bounced from home to home before the Johnsons gave him stability. Today, he wore the uniform of a U.S. Army sergeant, fresh from deployment. He stepped inside, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, his presence filling the room with strength. He hugged Eleanor, then Samuel, then turned to his siblings. His eyes hardened when he saw the shattered glass, the threatening letters, the fear written across everyone's faces. "What's happening here?" he demanded. David handed him the crumpled photo of Rosa's daughter. Michael's jaw tightened, veins bulging in his neck. "He threatened the family?" "Yes," Rosa spat. "And he won't stop. Not until he gets this house." Michael dropped his bag on the floor with a heavy thud. Then he just made the biggest mistake of his life. Eleanor's eyes watered as she clutched his arm. "Baby, I don't want you caught up in this. You've already fought wars." Michael shook his head firmly. "And I'll fight this one too. You saved me when no one else wanted me. You gave me a home. I don't care if it's in a courtroom in the streets or face-to-face with Hale himself. Nobody takes this house while I'm breathing." David and Rosa exchanged a glance. For the first time, they felt the tide shifting. It wasn't just lawyers and protests anymore. It was the full weight of a family united. Samuel's eyes shone with pride. This is what he didn't count on. He thought we were weak, but he doesn't understand. Our strength is in the children we raised. Outside, the crowd cheered louder than ever as word spread. Another Johnson child had come home. But in his glass tower downtown, Richard Hale watched the news with narrowed eyes. He picked up his phone and growled into it. "Shut them down. I don't care what it takes. Shut them down." Because Hale's next move wasn't just about lawyers or intimidation. It was about unleashing something far more dangerous. And when it came, the Johnson family would face their greatest test yet. Night fell heavy over the Johnson home. The air was thick with tension, every shadow outside carrying weight. Michael stood near the window, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Rosa sat at the table with her laptop open, blasting emails and posts across every social channel. David had stacks of case law spread out, writing late into the night. Eleanor and Samuel prayed quietly in the corner, their hands clasped tight. Then came the sirens. Red and blue lights flooded the windows. Dozens of police cruisers rolled up the street. Neighbors rushed to their porches, cameras recording, chants rising. "What is this?" Eleanor gasped. Michael opened the door and was met with a blinding spotlight. A police officer shouted through a bullhorn, "By order of the city, this property is condemned. Residents must vacate immediately." Rosa stormed out onto the porch with her megaphone. "This is harassment. We have legal action pending. You cannot remove this family without due process." The officer ignored her. Another read from a clipboard. "Failure to comply will result in arrest." The crowd of supporters erupted. "Shame, shame," they shouted. Signs waved. Reporters shoved forward. David stepped onto the porch in his suit, his voice ringing like thunder. "You're trying to evict a 72-year-old couple without a hearing, without a judge, without notice. That's not law, that's corruption." Michael moved in front of his parents, standing tall, unflinching under the flood of lights. His uniform gleamed in the chaos. "If you want them," he barked, "you go through me." The crowd roared. Eleanor clutched Samuel's arm. Her heart pounded as she whispered, "They'll drag us out in handcuffs." In front of everyone, but Rosa shook her head. "No, look." Cameras flashed, microphones swung forward, reporters shouted questions. The police froze, caught in the glare of national attention. And then, over the noise, a voice cut through like a blade. Richard Hale himself stepped out of a sleek black car parked down the street, his suit perfect, his smile cold. He walked slowly toward the porch, every step dripping with arrogance. "Well," Hale drawled, loud enough for the cameras, "look at this circus. All this noise for a house that doesn't even belong to them." The crowd booed. Rosa gripped her megaphone tighter. David's fists clenched. Michael stepped down one stair, face to face with the man who had haunted their family for 40 years. Hale leaned closer, smirking. "I told you, Johnsons. Time's up." Because in that moment, with the world watching, the Johnson family realized this wasn't just about their house anymore. It was about exposing Hale for what he truly was. And the final showdown was about to begin. The street was silent for a heartbeat. Reporters leaned forward. The cameras zoomed in. Everyone was waiting to see who would break first. Michael stood between Hale and his parents, his voice steady but filled with fire. "You've hidden behind lawyers, cops, and money your whole life. But not tonight. Tonight, everyone sees you for who you really are." Hale chuckled, straightening his tie. "And who is that, soldier? A man defending his property. A man doing business?" David stepped forward, holding up a stack of papers. His voice carried like a gavel. "No, a criminal. These are documents proving how you've targeted black families for decades. Redlining, illegal foreclosures, forged signatures, backroom deals. All of it." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reporters surged closer. Cameras flashed like lightning. Rosa raised her phone, live streaming it all. "We have thousands watching right now. You can't spin this anymore, Hale. Everyone sees the truth." For the first time, Hale's smirk faltered. His eyes darted to the police, but none moved. They stood frozen under the spotlight of public outrage. Eleanor, frail but unbroken, stepped out onto the porch. She faced Hale directly, her voice trembling but strong. "You tried to take our dignity. You tried to erase us. But what you didn't understand is this: our family isn't weak. Our family isn't alone. And we will never bow to men like you." The crowd erupted. Chants filled the night. "Justice! Justice! Justice!" Hale opened his mouth to respond, but then came the sound he feared most. Another siren. But not police this time. Federal agents stepped out of two black SUVs, badges flashing. One read from a warrant. "Richard Hale, you are under investigation for fraud, discrimination, and racketeering. You're coming with us." The color drained from Hale's face as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The once untouchable man was led away in front of the same people he had tried to silence. The crowd roared in victory. Tears streamed down Eleanor's cheeks. Samuel wrapped his arms around her, whispering, "We made it, Ellie. We made it." Michael saluted his parents. Rosa hugged her daughter tight. David folded the legal papers carefully, knowing this fight had set a precedent for families beyond their own. And, for the first time in decades, the Johnson home stood safe. Weeks later, the Johnson story spread across the nation. News outlets ran it. Schools taught it. Strangers sent letters of support, but Eleanor always returned to the same simple truth when asked how they survived. "It wasn't just us," she said softly. "It was our children. Not by blood, but by love. That's what saved us. That's what made us strong. Because in the end, this wasn't only about a house. It was about legacy. It was about family. It was about proving that hate cannot uproot love." And now I want to ask you, what would you have done in this situation? Do you believe family and community can truly overpower corruption and racism? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories about resilience, justice, and the fight against discrimination.